thanks so much for joining and welcome to Core Volunteer Training, which is a weekly webinar program of the Citizens Climate Lobby that provides CCL supporters, especially new and newer volunteers, access to in-depth training opportunities on topics relating to climate change and climate advocacy. I'm your host, Tamara Staten. I am CCL's Education and Resilience Coordinator, as well as our Greater Pacific Northwest Regional Director, I should say. And tonight's CCL Content Marketing Manager, Alyssa Tennant, has a training geared at enhancing you and your group's use of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and more. So let me take a minute to introduce our speaker, Alyssa. As CCL's Content Marketing Manager, Alyssa acts as a metaphorical air traffic controller, guiding the development and execution of strategic content plan that supports CCL's websites, social media, and volunteer chapters. And prior to joining the CCL team, Alyssa worked in marketing agencies in the Cleveland, Ohio area, where she learned the fine art of content marketing. She has a love-hate relationship with social media, but don't we all? Really, really great point, Alyssa. I love that. So in today's session, it looks like we're going to be starting with climate conversations, but we're going to do that fourth. So first, what we're going to do, though, is we're going to talk about the value of social media, and then we'll talk about how to use it in a positive, effective way, and how to follow Congress on social media. Then we'll talk about starting climate conversations on social media, and we'll follow that up with a workshop, an opportunity for you to actually put these skills to use, because honestly, there's nothing better than experiential learning if you actually want to come away with a skill. So then we'll end with whatever questions that you may have for us this evening. We have 3 learning goals for you tonight. Number 1 is to help you understand CCL's social media presence and platform basics. Our second goal for you is to help you learn the brand tone and posting strategies. And then third, we hope to help you discover how to leverage social media to build political will. I am going to pass it over to Alyssa.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Tambra. I appreciate it. So today we're going to talk about social media and how we can use it in climate advocacy. And I have a lot to get to, but I think we're going to get to it efficiently. So I'm going to dive into it with the value of social media in our climate work. So if you take a look at this graphic, this is based on data from a study published in the scientific journal Nature, great name, which found that Americans really underestimate other people's support for climate change policies. So over 2/3 of us do support major climate policies, but we assume that only 1/3 of us do, which is a really big gap. So we're underestimating support for climate action by half. So many people are walking around worried about climate change and they're supporting solutions, but they think they're alone. And one reason that gap exists is because people don't talk about climate change. They don't hear about it, and they don't hear about climate solutions nearly enough. So climate communicator, Dr. Catherine Hayhoe, who's on CCL's advisory board, she always says the most important thing you can do about climate change is talk about it. So a really critical piece of your work as a climate advocate is to talk about the climate issue, even when it's kind of scary, talk about why you care, and talk about solutions that are out there right now. So in April, we really put this to the test. If you have been around with CCL since April, you might remember we held more than 25,000 climate conversations nationwide. This graphic shows where they took place. So we have places like at an organized meeting or event, chance encounters, at home, out at a restaurant, an appointment, on Zoom or over the phone. But one thing we didn't actually count in this campaign was social media conversations. And what is social media if not a place to talk about stuff without leaving your house? So think about social media platforms as one more place in addition to all these places to have climate conversations so this issue feels relevant to people in your life. When you have these conversations in like the town square of social media, you can help change people's perception and their level of support for climate action. And you can show friends, family, and followers that there are ways to support that they might not have realized, which frees them up to join the conversation themselves. And all of this does what CCL does best, which builds political will for action. So that's why we use social media to talk as a tool to talk to our friends and family, communicate with members of Congress, and reach new audiences so people know that they aren't alone and there are things that they can do. So CCL National has active accounts on all the major platforms, and tonight we'll talk about how you can join us in bringing the conversation out of real life and into, as Bo Burnham says, the much more real, much more liminal digital space. So, really quick pulse check if you want to take a minute to think about this, maybe put in the chat. In your opinion, like how can we use social media in a positive, effective way in our climate advocacy? I mean, social media is a tool, it can be used for good or evil. So, how can we make sure that we use it for good? Does anybody have any thoughts on this topic? And that is true. We can reply positively to people. And that is something that we will get into a little bit later in this training. Sydney, true. We can find people with, we can use social media to reach more people than we would otherwise, and we can find people with specific experiences or skills. That is something we will also get into a little bit later, resharing content, and bringing attention to issues and impacts that may go unnoticed. You guys are hitting all the points. We're going to talk about that later on in this presentation as well. So we can use social media for good. And here's how we're going to do that. So, step one, let's start to answer this question. So, step one is to follow CCL's social media accounts to see how we're having climate conversations online. I'm going to take a minute to share some tips we've learned at CCL from running our own social media accounts and how we start climate conversations. And you can kind of see those tips in action when you do follow us. So I'd suggest kind of screenshotting this slide because I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. But this is a quick overview of the accounts where we're active, including X, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn, and TikTok. I'm not an X purist. You can also call it Twitter. People know what you're talking about. I will take a minute to note that we all know TikTok, it's a bit of a beast. We are very active on the first 5 platforms. We are not as active on TikTok. That algorithm is scary. It wants me to make a lot of content and a lot of visual content. It's a really, really big undertaking. We're always working on making it better. But those first 5 accounts are kind of CCL's tried and true, where we post most of our climate conversations starting content. So, something important we work to develop on social media is our brand tone. So, if you're a person posting on social media, if CCL was a person, how would they sound? How would they talk? So, we came up with a few important attributes that kind of guide the way that we post and talk on social media, which help us stay consistent and on message when we're spreading the word advocating for the climate. So the first part of our brand tone is we're a little bit nerdy. We like graphs and charts, but the thing about graphs and charts is they can be really, really complicated. Social media is not a place where people love to like look at complicated things. If you're like me, your algorithm is that guy who cleans like horses' hooves and those like Reddit posts that show like subway surfers as they like just go through insane, just brain rot. So, so to make things a little bit easier for people to digest on social media, we make the numbers behind climate change understandable and accessible to all. Some people are into numbers, but not all of us. I'd venture to say the majority of us are not really willing to understand a big chart. So we prefer to break things down in a way everybody can understand. And honestly, sometimes the most basic facts can have the biggest impact. The second attribute of our brand tone is that we're wholesome. We project warmth, hope, and welcome to existing and prospective CCL supporters. The climate space can be a really rough place online, and we prefer to put a little hope into the world. Yay. We're a little bit self deprecating too. Like, we're serious about climate action, but we're not taking ourselves too seriously. We know this stuff is hard. It can seem really crazy to contact Congress 5,000 times in support of one bill. But if we can't laugh at ourselves, like, who can we laugh at? So we toss in a little self deprecating humor to keep things real and keep them funny and keep them engaging. And finally, we strive to be human in our brand tone. Our posts and replies sound like they come from a real person, because technically they do. It's me. But by using a friendly and approachable tone, we can better connect with our followers. So we're not big and accessible. We're not trying to put things out there that are really hard to understand. We're not a faceless corporation. We're a grassroots network of volunteers, and we're all friends. So conversations are a two-way street, like even on social media. Our brand tone is often tested when we encounter a naysayer, but we always make an effort to respond. One thing you don't want to do, generally speaking, is let challenging comments or conversations hang. There's always a way that you can respond that's constructive and positive. So here's how we navigate some of the rough conversations that happen through a screen, which, as we all know, are very different from the ones that happen in real life. So what do we do when the haters come? Not this. Social media is not real life. This is like my number one life hack for operating on social media. It's a really weird liminal space. People behave differently online than they do in real life. It's a good channel for communication, but it's not worth letting it get to you in your real life or letting it impact you. So when the haters come, instead of flipping tables, we stick to the tone. Just as we do in our lobby meetings, we bring respect, appreciation, and gratitude into our social media interactions, and we stay true to our values. Ask yourself before responding to somebody about climate, will responding to this further my intentions of building relationships, remaining nonpartisan, and things that I represent on behalf of CCL? You might encounter somebody who doesn't support carbon pricing, doesn't love the idea of bipartisanship, or just disagrees with you. And if you're not able to engage with that person in a respectful way, or you want to like win or have the last word, logging off is free. It's my favorite thing to do. Another great way to keep conversations civil online, though, and this is a really important tip, is questions. So instead of telling somebody why you're right and they're wrong, you can try asking them a question. So instead of saying, well, 97% of climate scientists agree that humans are causing climate change, you could say instead, like, well, what would it take for you to believe that climate scientists say climate change is real and it's man made? These questions can lead to introspection a lot faster than accusations and angry words and allow you to kind of get to the root of the problem, especially because a lot of people engage in these comments if they want to be like a naysayer, just because they want to get a rise out of you. And it's not particularly productive on either side. And another thing to keep in mind is if you're having a debate with somebody, there's people who are lurking all the time. So somebody might just be watching your interaction and your back and forth. You might not convince the person disagreeing with you, but other people might really appreciate a respectful approach and a civil conversation rather than something more combative. I have a really nice example here of a volunteer who stuck to these values perfectly in response to somebody who did not agree with him. Permitting reform can be a bit of a fraught subject online. There's a lot of nuances and complications with new legislation. So somebody did not agree with somebody else's post that we had made about permitting reform. And a volunteer actually jumped in and he linked a CCL training to support his point. He stuck to the brand tone, and this particularly challenging conversation went on to go really well because of it. That was awesome. So that's kind of my first section about like following CCL, how CCL does things, how we remain respectful, and how we stick to our brand tone on social media in the potentially fraught climate space. So, step two of how we can use social media for positive, effective change is to bring the climate conversation to Congress on social media. I'm particularly proud of this GIF because I made it myself and I didn't know I could do that. So, engaging with members of Congress starts with following their accounts. So, you're seeing what they're posting about and you can respond when it's appropriate. When you see them post something climate related or something that could be climate adjacent, that's an opportunity to engage with a comment. So, this may be shocking to you, but the comment section of Congress's social media posts can get a little bit messy. It's a public forum for people to express their thoughts, and sometimes we have negative thoughts. But what that means for us is it's actually kind of easy to cut through the noise by leaving a positive comment. A simple note expressing gratitude to a member of Congress for co sponsoring a climate bill, visiting a local school, holding a town hall, that can stand out and really stick to those key values of gratitude, appreciation, and respect. We actually have a little screenshot example on this slide of a volunteer who thanked Representative Carbajal after he reintroduced the Energy Innovation Act this Congress. So another way to stand out too is to tag your members of Congress in your own posts. So let's say you spent the weekend tabling, talking to people in your community, or you got a letter to the editor published in your local paper. You can make a post about it and tag your member of Congress so they get a notification and they'll see what's going on in their district. They are probably not checking their own social media accounts. They have a lot going on, but trust me, a staffer is definitely checking and monitoring those accounts. So it's good to look for opportunities to tag Congress and comment on their posts. Important stat, 10 to 30 comments on one topic are enough to get Congress to pay attention in the social media space. So, in addition to having the public conversation about climate change that we are all striving to have, like I said, members of Congress have a staffer in charge of social media, checking comments, reporting back, even if they don't respond to you directly. So, your comments and your posts not only make an impact on your friends, family, and followers, they make an impact on your lawmakers. One thing we do need to keep in mind is just kind of a common sense thing. No need to be a troll. No need to spam your member of Congress with the same comments and posts over and over again. Trust me, you comment once and they will see it. There's no need to say it 37 different times. Um, and it's important to remain judicious with this space and this information. I do have two examples also of how this approach of engaging members of Congress has strengthened relationships and led to interactions with lawmakers. So, this is a tweet that our communications director, Flannery Winchester, posted, and it was retweeted by Senator Brian Schatz from Hawaii. She posted about a carbon pricing bill during the last Congress, cheering on its introduction, and it was retweeted, which was really, really cool. And then we have a similar post from Representative Derek Kilmer and one from a Republican senator, Senator Kevin Cramer. So they met with CCL volunteers and they made the post themselves. We also have volunteers who meet with members of Congress, whether on our organized lobby day or on their own, and they will make those posts and tag their members of Congress individually and from chapter accounts. And these type of mentions and interactions can further elevate our climate advocacy work. Maybe somebody who follows the representative didn't know about Citizens Climate, and now they have seen the account and can click that tag to investigate. And it solidifies relationships with the congressional offices that we work with, and it sets the right tone with how we present ourselves on social media. So the types of posts that it can be helpful to tag your member of Congress in are, again, posting from your chapter meetings, tabling events, getting a letter to the editor published, or lobby meetings. So actually going out and doing that work is helpful for members of Congress to see. Another quick little pulse check before we head into the third and final section here. Who are your members of Congress? If you want to put in the chat, like, do you already follow them? Do you plan to? My members of Congress are the two senators from Ohio, J.D. Vance, who is soon to not be a senator, and Senator Sherrod Brown, and then Representative Dave Joyce. I meet with Dave Joyce at all of CCL's organized lobbying events. So it's really important that I follow that office on social media. So after that meeting, I can follow up, I can see what climate work he's doing, bring it up in the next meeting and strengthen that relationship. Yes, newsletters are also very important, James. That's one way to keep in touch with them and know what they are doing. Wyden and Merkley. Tamara, do you follow them on social media?
If I were on social media, I would.
Relatable. I am on social media. I'm just kidding. I'm giving this training and I'm like, I'm not even on it. I am.
I'm just the host. You're the master. I'm actually am on social media. I'm just not active. So I follow them, but I don't know what they're doing.
Cindy, Senator Chuck Schumer, Kristen, I'm not gonna say everybody's name. You'd think because I work for CCL, I would know how to say everybody's names out loud, but I only ever read them. So not gonna make an effort to say that one out loud. And Representative Brandon Williams. Plan to follow them through your personal accounts now. Good choice. So you can see what they're up to. All right, so this is where we get into why we are here. So this is, I think, I'm biased, but I think this is the good stuff. So step 3 of using social media in a positive way to impact change is to start your own climate conversations on social media. So, Tamara, if you want to go to the next slide. One easy option to start the climate conversation is to share CCL's posts. We try really hard to make shareable content and conversation starters that you can repost to your own audience, no matter what the platform is. This example I have is Instagram. So sharing content works best when you add your own perspective to the content you're sharing. You could add a caption that has a question or a conversation opener to engage your friends and followers and try to get them to join the conversation. So the example here I have is an Instagram post that CCL made. You could share this post very easily to your Instagram story, or you could save it and repost it to your own Instagram feed. Say something like, oh, the graphic for context is nearly 9 in 10 adults have experienced an extreme weather event in the past 5 years. So this is pretty easy to say, I'm concerned about this. Remember last summer's wildfires? There were extremely high temperatures and the smoky air was so uncomfortable. My grandkids couldn't play outside most of the day. I obviously don't have grandkids. This is not coming from me, but like, has anyone else experienced an extreme weather event like this? Or like, does anyone else remember the wildfires? Like, were you impacted by that? Super easy way to reach out, start a conversation about climate change. Once that conversation gets rolling, you can even have an opportunity to offer people steps to take action, direct them to CCL's website, direct them to write their member of Congress, anything like that. And I just want to make a note. I don't have time tonight to get into how to share posts on social media, like the step by step. So if that's something that's new to you, you can please feel free to email me using the contact information at the end of this presentation, and I can definitely help you out later on, send you some guides, and we can work over email. So the other option that you can do if you don't want to share CCL's posts is you can make your own posts. Like you can use your own social media platform as a force for change. So you can share CCL's content. We hope you do, but it can get a little bit boring to reshare the same page's content over and over again, and others can eventually tune out. So the solution is to create your own posts. We'll give you some ideas for some good conversation starting posts in the next couple of slides. I want to note that you don't have to make 100 posts a day, one a week, one a month, one every 2 weeks is totally fine. In fact, if you post too much about climate or post too much in general, it can cause people to unfollow you or tune you out. We all have seen accounts like that, or like people who post their entire lives on Instagram stories, and we're just like going like this. So don't feel the need to like go crazy on this. A few simple posts to start can be really impactful. So the first option that you can do is share breaking news. Um, Breaking news can be good. A lot of the times it's bad. So I'm here to offer you the Daily Climate. It's dailyclimate.com. It's a great source for climate related news stories, and you can actually filter by good news. There are going to be more and more stories as the climate worsens. So it's really helpful to check out Daily Climate. So when I looked this up, it was actually July 3rd, 2024, when I put this together. And there were like 5 different news stories immediately I could talk about that day alone. We had just experienced our 12th hottest month ever in a row. The West is having to implement new guidelines around fireworks on the 4th of July because it's drying out. These are more depressing than I wanted them to be. I made it sound like they were going to be good news. Hurricane Beryl was just coming in. It was an early Category 5 hurricane. There was flooding in the Midwest. However, there's also investment in clean technology was found to be set to overtake fossil fuel spending in 2024. So like I said, there's going to be a lot of bad news and there's going to be some good news. Whatever one kind of speaks to you, you can post articles and you can share your thoughts. You can also include a call to action when it's possible. You don't want to ask your audience to join CCL and just start volunteering right away with every single post. Sometimes it makes sense to say, like, there's crazy flooding in the Midwest right now. It freaks me out a little bit. I'm writing to Congress in support of this bill that would combat climate change and like make it easier to invest in green energy infrastructure. So sharing breaking news is one way that you can start a climate conversation. You can also react to bad news, but hold on, stick with me. Climate news can be a little bit depressing, and there's a lot of information out there. So, giving a positive or productive spin to the news of the day can be a really great way to interact online. And it produces credibility and trust, and you can start building an audience of people who are interested in what you have to say. And I gotta say, our volunteers specialize in finding a silver lining in every situation. So, it's really good to kind of like, well, everybody's kind of got doomerism going on, take that, put a spin on it, give people a way they can take action and remain positive. But be warned, if you have an opinion that's contrary to kind of the masses, you're going to inevitably draw in people who disagree with you too. Uh, One thing that we have a social media consultant, and he always reminds me, if people are nasty or persistent in their comments, the algorithm actually takes notice and it boosts your content, such as the beast of social media. So just keep being civil and nice and follow those tips we mentioned earlier, and you're gonna win the day with your followers on this one. Sydney kind of touched on this earlier, but you don't have to just share from CCL accounts. I will allow, you can share posts from others too. So there are so many climate influencers in their own little niches. Some are artists, infographic designers, journalists, bloggers. Tamara, actually the host of this call, specializes in resilience-based content and climate resilience. So you can find content that you enjoy reading and you can share it. You can add your own thoughts. It isn't always necessary. But it's a really cool way to kind of grow your network of people that you follow, and share their content to your own profile. Super easy. Just note that if you find content and you share it like not from their account, you find something online and you repost it, just be sure to credit the original account and tag them in the post copy, which is common online etiquette. We don't want to like steal anything, especially for infographics. Fourth thing you can do, ask questions. So earlier we said asking questions is a way to kind of be civil online and get to the heart of it, like a disagreement. But it's also a good way to boost engagement. I have a degree in marketing. Asking questions always boosts engagement. The more engagement, the more other people can see that there's a big conversation going and lots of people are concerned about climate change. So open the conversation yourself. Ask, like, if you had to pick one non-fossil fuel energy source, what would it be? Like, what's your favorite? Do you like solar? Are you really into wind power? What about nuclear? Or what is one way that climate change has impacted your life this year? I found that every single person always has an answer to this, no matter where they live. Or you could even say, like, today was the hottest day in recorded history, and that freaks me out. Does it freak you out? Keep the conversation going on your posts, respond to comments, and offer steps for action. And then the last one I have for you is my favorite. It's sharing your advocacy work. So a lot of people or a lot of chapters have their own accounts. Well, they're share like what the chapter is doing, tabling events, meetings, etc. But I think it's really important for people to share on their individual accounts their advocacy work. A lot of times people will share just like that they went to DC for our lobby day. But you could share like, oh, I tabled for an hour today at this farmer's market and I had a really good conversation. Like your friends and family follow you because they want to see what you're doing. You can inspire them by explaining why this work is so important to you. Like we've all been around somebody who's talking about something they're passionate about, and you care what they care about just because of the way that they light up. You don't like need an excuse to post this. You don't need to like get back from your tabling event and be sure that you post immediately. You could post like a month later even and say like last month I did this. It was really cool. And you can talk about why you're passionate about climate solutions and share a photo. This is the good stuff people want to see about social media. And this can open up a lot of conversations and engagement and start that conversation about climate change and why it matters. The last thing I wanted to mention here is that I want to make it super easy for you to create content. If you want to spread the good word about climate advocacy on social media and create your own stuff, get a little creative. We have free Canva templates that can be used by chapter accounts and individuals. This is really helpful for platforms like Instagram because you might need to spend a lot of time creating graphics for posts, and like graphics, photos tend to grab people's attention. So many volunteers already use Canva to design graphics, and we have a training video on Community for those of you who are new to Canva and want to get into using it. So I think Tamara is going to put that link in the chat. Right, Tamara? Yeah, okay. That's the link to the community. All right. So as I kind of wrap up what I have to tell you, which I know was a lot to tell you in a very short amount of time, we're going to have a workshop activity where we start our own climate conversation and put into action what we have learned here. So if you want to grab, I'm sure you guys are already on your phones, tablets, computer, let's take an action. So I have two kind of ways we can do this. We are starting our own climate conversations online. If you have social media accounts, here's what we'll ask you to do. If you don't have a social media account, which happens a lot on this call, or you don't feel comfortable making a post tonight, we have an alternate way that we can do this that I'll get to in a moment. But if you have a social media account, here's what we're going to do in the next 5 or 10 minutes. First, pick a platform. I recommend Facebook, X, Threads, LinkedIn, or Instagram, the ones that CCL is most active on. That's where we have our largest audience, people concerned about climate. But honestly, whichever one you feel most comfortable with, if you want to like slap out a TikTok right now, like you do you. So that's step one, pick a platform. And then step two, think about what you want to share. So in a moment, we're going to give you the URL for CCL's Spread the Word page. And that's where we have links to our latest posts that you can share with your own thoughts. But you can also start searching for an article, image of you doing climate advocacy work, an infographic, something else to share. Just people who are on that platform who are sharing climate themed content that you can follow. It's totally up to you. And then pick a post once you have it and share it with your thoughts. Try to start a climate conversation, ask an open-ended question, and remember to tag CCL so I can go back through tonight and I can share your post to a bigger audience. And always respond to the comments as they roll in to keep up that engagement. And if you need more time, like we're only going to take about 5-6 minutes here tonight. So if you need more time, just take those minutes to use as brainstorming time. Think about post ideas for the future. Jot down some things that you can talk about or share. And I know not everyone is super big on social media or has their own accounts. So if you don't feel like making a post tonight, no worries. You can just go to that Spread the Word page and you can share those posts. I mean, you don't have an account, so you can watch them and engage with them. Or if you do have an account, you can share them, comment on them, like them. We have options for Facebook, X, and Instagram. The more people who watch our videos and engage with CCL's content, the more people who see it in general. That's how the algorithm works. So this job is also really important. So with that, Tamara is going to put the URL in the chat. I'm going to pause for like 5 minutes, take a sip of sparkling water, and allow you time to engage with a post or two from this page, create your own post, your post that you made, your ideas with the group. And then right after that, we will wrap up. But I'm going to wrap it up with some action items. Before we move into Q&A, just saying if you want to put these tips into action, just remember to follow CCL if you don't already on Instagram, X, Threads, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Those are our most active platforms. You'll be able to see our posts that you can engage with, share with your own network. Follow your members of Congress, engage with their climate-related content, show respect, appreciation, and gratitude. And then when you're ready, go ahead and use our Canva templates and these ideas we talked about tonight to create your own climate conversation starting posts. And then finally, I just want to mention for ongoing support, CCL does have a social media action team. You can find it on the CCL community. Tamara's going to put that link in the chat, or you can find it on Facebook. We have an active Facebook group called the CCL Social Media Action Team. You can talk to me, you can talk to our communications director, Flannery, get all your questions answered. There are no small questions. We talk about anything social media related, and we can have a bunch of volunteers jump in and brainstorm with you.
End of all the trainings, if you do any other trainings on CCL community, click the green button. Through our interactive training, we have a log your training section, and then you can also log all of your actions and your trainings through the action tracker in the chapter and volunteer development. If you are doing a training and you just start typing the first 4 letters of the training, and voila, it will show up for you. So with that, here's the information that Alyssa was referring to. If you have any general social media questions, feel free to check out the social media action team, cclusa.org/CCL social. If you want to check out our slides, it has all of the speakers notes as well as all of the links. That's cclusa.org/social-media-basics. And then you can email Alyssa and chat her up about all the things that you want to chat her up about, especially social media. So that is all we have for you this evening. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. Thanks so much, Alyssa. Have a good time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Citizens Climate Lobby's training program. You can tune into more episodes anywhere podcasts are available. Inspired by what you heard today? Join Citizens Climate Lobby to advocate for bipartisan climate solutions. Go to community.citizensclimate.org to find more trainings, resources, your local chapter, national action teams, discussion forums, and more. Be sure to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and Instagram @CitizensClimate. We also invite all of our listeners to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiration.
Like what you hear? Recommend us to your friends and make sure to give us a 5-star rating. It helps us show up on other listeners' feeds. Feel free to pass on any suggestions for future episodes in the comments as well.
And together, we are creating the political will for a livable world.